The Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited on Wednesday announced that it had secured a $3 billion emergency loan from the African Export-Import Bank to stabilize the country's volatile foreign exchange market. The illiquidity in the foreign exchange market had seen the dollar exchange for as low as 950 naira to a dollar in the parallel market and 775 naira in the official window, a situation that had become a nightmare for businesses in the country, further complicating Nigeria's massive fuel importation, which gulps about $20 billion yearly. Shortly after the NNPCL announcements, the naira appreciated to about 850 naira to a dollar on the parallel market. At the investor and exporter forex window, trading commenced at 781 naira 66 kobo to a dollar and reached a high of 799 naira 90 kobo to a dollar before closing at 759 naira 86 kobo to a dollar on Wednesday. Now, joining me on the show to talk about this, I have Dr. Muda Yusuf, Chief Executive Officer, Center for the Promotion of Enterprise. Thank you so much for joining us, Doctor.
Thank you very much.
All right. Now, shortly after President Bola Ahmed Tinubu assured Nigerians that there will be no further increase in the price of premium motor spirit, otherwise known as petrol, the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation announced that it has secured a $3 billion emergency crude repayment loan, which is aimed at supporting the naira and to also stabilize the foreign exchange market. So what's your take on this move, and how will that stem the depreciation of the naira and ensure price stability on PMS as it's been speculated?
Well, there is no doubt that we have a major crisis in the foreign exchange market, and it's essentially crisis of liquidity. And when nations have liquidity crisis in their foreign exchange markets, they have a number of options. One option is to approach the IMF for a facility to bridge the gaps. The other option is to seek a facility from the commercial creditors like the Eurobond, go to Eurobond markets to raise facility. And the other option, of course, is that if a nation has assets or it has credible companies that can generate liquidity for its foreign markets, they can leverage on that kind of assets, either by way of leveraging the asset to raise facility or even selling part of the asset or selling part of their shares. So these are some of the options. And the option that the government has taken now through the NNPC, perhaps I think is the best option in the circumstances. This is much better than going to IMF. First, the IMF window, the processes can be very laborious, and IMF will come with very strict conditionalities. The other option is to approach Eurobond market. Again, at this time, assessing Eurobond market will be extremely difficult because of the challenges that the economy is facing at the moment. So this option for me is a very good option. At least it will help to douse the speculative component of the foreign exchange market. And we can all see from the way the market has responded to this situation. Because you have a foreign exchange market and you have a declining confidence. And when confidence begins to decline, it has a way of fueling speculation and creating all manner of anxiety within the economy. So it's a good step, and I think it's something that we should welcome. NNPC has the fundamentals, and the credibility to be able to get this facility and to be able to service it. I'm sure that is why the AFREXIMBANK has been so kind enough to extend the facility to the NNPC.
All right. Well, the presidential spokesman, Ajuri Ngalale, said that the exposure for NNPCL was very limited, considering this path that the government has taken are covering just a fraction of their entitlements, adding that there are no sovereign guarantees tied to the loan. So looking at the technicalities of this loan, I'd like you to help us understand what that statement about not being tied to sovereign guarantees means, and if you actually share the same sentiment as been expressed by Ajuri.
Well, NNPC is a limited liability company, even though the ownership is largely by the government. It is not strictly a government agency. So therefore, the issue of sovereign guarantee doesn't really arise. Secondly, NNPC is able to, get this facility because of the strong fundamentals it has as an institution. Because it takes a lot of credibility and very strong fundamentals for the AFREXIMBANK to be able to extend the facility to NNPC. So this facility is essentially to NNPC, based on the fact that it has the capacity to repay the loan through the sale of crude. As it sells the crude, it will be offsetting the facility. So it's not the same thing as if a government arm or government in itself is taking a facility or a government agency is taking a facility. So it makes it much easier, and it also limits our exposure as a nation, because this is like paying royalties and taxes upfront, to the federation account. Don't forget the bulk of the foreign exchange earnings that we get in the country is slightly from the oil and gas sector. And this foreign exchange earnings flows into our reserves through the NNPC. So it's not anything that is unusual. The only unusual part of it is that NNPC is making the payment upfront. That is the only difference. And NNPC has the capacity to offset the loan because of the kind of strong fundamentals it has as an organization.
All right, let's now look at the mode of.
Let me also give you an example.
Okay.
We have Saudi Aramco. Saudi Aramco, that's the Saudi oil company. It's a company even quoted on the global market, and it's owned entirely by the Saudi government. When the Saudi government needed some liquidity, it sold 1.5% of the shares of Saudi Aramco. And that 1.5% fetched the Saudi government $25.6 billion US. That is leveraging the assets and leveraging the opportunity that exists from a government company to raise facility. You can imagine the kind of convenience that gave to the Saudi Arabian government, rather than going cap in hand to IMF or to the Euro market and all of that to raise credit. We were able to sell just 1.5%, and we were able to raise over $25 billion US. So that is the beauty of having companies that are very solid, that are also owned by the government. So that is the advantage. You can always leverage on it if you have a liquidity challenge.
All right, let's now look at the mode of payment and the convenience. Now, the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Digital and New Media, Tega Ogra, explained that the emergency loan was not accrued for refined product swap, but an upfront cash, just as you have said, a cash loan against proceeds from a limited amount of future crude oil production. Now, is this, a crude for cash swap deal? And would Nigeria not be shortchanged in terms of value exchange?
No, certainly not. Certainly not. The framework or the structure of this facility is such that from the sales of crude, the payment will be made depending on what is agreed with AFREXIMBANK. And NNPC has the cash flow to support it. It's not as if the entire cash flow will be committed to the payment of the facility. We are not sure exactly how long this will take because we don't have the full details. But NNPC it is going to be servicing it from its own cash flow. The only flip side or downside to it is that the future accretion to reserves that normally comes from the NNPC into the federation account and that hits the reserve, that future cash flow will be affected. That is the only difference. So the amount of money of foreign exchange that NNPC subsequently will now be making available to our reserves will reduce because we have taken a huge chunk upfront to be able to stabilize the the foreign exchange market. So there's no major challenge with it. Right, and luckily, oil price is already getting close to around $85 per barrel. The government is doing a lot to curb the problem of insecurity in the oil producing area. So we are likely to see an improvement in oil production. Once we're able to achieve that, I think it will be very easy for this facility to be repaid by the NNPC.
All right. Now let's quickly just talk about the difference between a commercialized and private entity. I'd like you to shed more light on that. Bearing in mind that until the initial public offering, the Ministries of Finance and Petroleum Resources are set to still be in charge of NNPCL administration. So you have said that the NNPC has the financial base to actually drive these kind of transactions. So legally speaking, is there any wrongdoing, or would you say that the government has actually leveraged on the financial portfolio of the NNPC to ensure that it raises the amount it needs to stabilize the naira value, as the case is? And does it also say that this role actually falls under the purview of the CBN?
No. Certainly, this is not a monetary policy issue. This is a liquidity issue. And this is a sovereign liquidity issue. The government has a responsibility to stabilize the foreign exchange market. It discharges that responsibility through the Central Bank of Nigeria. And the reserves that we have today, almost 80% of it came from the oil and gas sector. Because the oil and gas sector still accounts for close to 90% of our export earnings. So the lifeline for our reserves is the oil and gas sector. And NNPC, being a limited liability company, also has its own corporate governance framework. For as long as these facilities was raised within its corporate governance framework, it's fine. There's no issue at all. And it's not a monetary policy matter, because normally when you have a liquidity issue as a government, you source liquidity from wherever you can get it. If you go to IMF, it's not the CBN that is going to IMF, it is the government as a sovereign that will go to IMF to raise facility. If they are going to the Euro bond market to raise money, it is the government that goes, it's not the CBN. So the same thing, if you want to improve your reserves and you have a company that has the capacity to generate liquidity for you, you leverage on that capacity to generate the liquidity. So it's not an incursion into monetary policy space at all. It's about stabilizing the economy, it's about stabilizing the macroeconomic environment. It's about bringing back confidence into the foreign exchange market. That is what it is. And I think it's in order to do so.
All right. Earlier on, you talked about the Saudi Aramco. You cited example with the Saudi Aramco. And if I did get you correctly, you said the interest payment differential is about 1.25%. I want to believe I got that correctly. Now, in Nigeria's case, the interest rate payment is about between 8 and 11%. So is that a good deal? Is it a fair deal for Nigeria?
No. What I was saying about Saudi Aramco, I wasn't talking about interest rate payments. I was talking about the fact that the Saudi government floated a national oil company, something equivalent to our own NNPC. And it's properly valued and it's also quoted on the global stock market, such that when the Saudi government needed liquidity, it sold just 1.5% of it, not interest.
Okay.
1.5% shares.
Okay.
And used it to raise, $25 billion. So it's equity. It's like using equity to finance the government operations. So it's completely, it's slightly different. But the comparison I was trying to draw was that if you have a solid company, you can leverage that company to raise funds, either through equity or through debt. And it is in order to do so because it is cheaper, it is more convenient. They are talking about 11%. I'm not aware, I don't have information about the interest rates that this will attract.
Yeah, we have it on authority that's between 8 and 11%.
Well, that may be on the high side, but in any case, for the kind of problem we want to solve, I don't think it's out of place. I mean, look at what the volatility in the foreign exchange market is creating. Look at the problem it's creating for the economy as a whole. Everybody is feeling it, including the ordinary man on the street. We need to restore confidence into that space. So whatever we can do quickly, we needed to do. And this is part of the quickest response that you can get to it. So for me, I think it's in order.
All right, now, as it affects the ordinary man on the streets, now the Naira yesterday recorded a significant gain against the dollar in the parallel market, and of course, the I&E window, as news filtered in, that NNPC secured the loan. Now, as this fund will be released in tranches, should Nigerians expect probably a valuable appreciation of the currency, a gradual drop in petrol price to maybe the status quo if possible, and a boost in forex supply? Because these are the basic things that actually affect the ordinary Nigerian.
Yes, those are the issues, and I think that is the objective. That is the objective that the government also wants to achieve, to bring some relief to the average Nigerian through ensuring that we moderate the volatility in the foreign exchange markets. That is the end. That is the end goal. That is the ultimate objective. And if you don't do this, if the macroeconomic environment is not stable, how do you ensure that you have a good business environment? How do you ensure that there is confidence in the system? How do you attract even more investment into the economy? How do you ensure that you have a moderation in inflation? How do you ensure that you have a moderation even in fuel price? So the exchange rate is at the heart of so many things. That is why the government has gone out of its way to be able to get this facility. And I must also caution that going forward, even this facility, we need to also manage it properly. Because if we expose it to all these speculators, within 2-3 months, the whole thing will evaporate.
Yes, and Doctor, that that actually brings me to this. Talking about repayment and management of this facility, you would recall that the federal government reported a 13.6% drop in daily crude oil production in the month of July. So, in terms of management, do you think that would not affect this agreement signed with AFREXIMBANK in terms of shortfall on the part of government, the repayment of this loan facility?
No, it will not affect it. What has happened is that, yes, we have a drop in oil production. The drop is not a permanent drop. It's not as if it's going to continue to drop like that. Government is doing everything possible to ensure that at least we meet our OPEC quota. And I'm sure that we are making some progress there, although you reported a drop in July. And for this kind of facility, I'm sure the first line of payment in terms of whatever comes to NNPC will have to be to service this facility. So no matter what you produce, the priority in terms of from the cash flow, the priority of commitment will have to be the payment of the loan. That is the way some of these things are structured. So the risk to AFREXIMBANK is not that high. That is why AFREXIMBANK felt comfortable to be able to deal directly with the NNPC limit.
All right, Dr. Muda Yusuf, Chief Executive Officer, Center for the Promotion of Enterprises, thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you very much, my pleasure.